Welcome to Season 7 of CX in the Wild. We're happy to have you back on the adventure with us again.
You're the second to the last podcast of the day. I'm so excited to be here at CCW Vegas podcasting live. I appreciate you making a stop by.
Of course.
And, we've known each other for several years. We've done some collaborations. But let's talk about your latest place in the industry. You've had some new things going on. Let's start with who you are and what you do in 2024.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in customer experience about 15 plus years in different leadership roles in fintech, food tech, event ticketing. I was in the software space for a bit, so I took some time to peek under the hood and see what's going on there, so to speak. And now I'm in virtual healthcare with Maven Clinic, which is a virtual healthcare organization specializing in healthcare for women and families. So yeah, I've been in all sorts of different verticals and experienced what it means to service customers differently across very different verticals.
So virtual healthcare, the world has changed. Virtual healthcare is like booming now. I do at least half of my doctor visits virtually now, which I love. But patient care is a little different than customer care, I would venture to say. So tell us about what's the new on virtual healthcare. Walk us through that experience.
Yeah, it is a really interesting space. And I think, a lot of the differences really revolve around the sensitivities of healthcare, both from a legal perspective, like HIPAA compliance and so forth, but also the emotional sensitivities of healthcare. So like one of the things that I'm really excited about in the CX world is the use of AI for quality assurance purposes, as an example, because, quality of care obviously matters a lot, regardless of which vertical you're in. But there are certain verticals when you're dealing with more emotionally sensitive issues, like someone's health, which is very personal and very impactful to their life, where having the ability to metricize and understand quality, just like we understand response time and resolution time and things of that nature, and find a way to elevate quality by being able to metricize it is a really important thing. And with large language models and this AI technology provides the opportunity to take something like quality, which has kind of been in the manual space where, you could have meander your way through different contacts if you're a QA specialist, and there's questions about subjectivity when you're rating intangible things like empathy and tone. And you can actually use these large language models to put more science behind that and thereby kind of elevate quality to a higher position. And that's, again, really important in all spaces, but I think especially really interesting in healthcare and other industries like financial services, I'd say very much too, where there's a lot of sensitivity involved in interactions. And same thing too, I would say with agent assist technology is a big thing, because in areas like healthcare, you often may be navigating very complex questions about people's coverage and benefits. That's very difficult for an agent to process when you may be dealing with multiple clients who have different nuances to those coverage and benefits. So real-time agent assist technology is huge in being able to empower agents to have more complex conversations without reducing the quality of those conversations.
Bro, I suddenly feel like it was worth it, lugging all this camera equipment and recording equipment out just to hear that. What a fresh perspective. I don't know what I was expecting when I sat down with you, but those two nuggets related to patient care and the healthcare industry are tremendous insights. I just recently judged a U.S. Customer Experience Awards show, and there was a healthcare provider there. And this healthcare provider, Providence, I think it was 2 years ago, I also judged one of their categories. They had the most impressive CX campaign ever. And they won. I voted for them and they won. I wasn't the only vote. Everybody loved them. But here's what they did. They had this thing called walk a mile in their shoes. And here was their basic premise. To understand someone else, you need to walk a mile in their shoes. But their premise was, it's pretty easy to get in their shoes part. It's the walk a mile that people always skip. And so what they did was they did like a job shadowing or a job share program where they took their senior executives and put them on the front lines in the healthcare centers and in different frontline capacities and let them do that job for a week. And then had reassessment after that of like, what did we all learn? The thing that struck me most was a woman who was in charge of the patient intake system. She said that intake system was her baby, customer-centric woman, empathetic, dedicated person. She implemented this system. It'd been up for running for 2 years, but she had never gone through the patient intake system. She sat on the front lines and did the job for a week, and her basic takeaway is no one can do this process. This is impossible. All the workarounds that the frontline people had to do to get her patient system to work. And what I'd say about that is, I think we all know the high stakes of patients in healthcare. It's unfortunately a industry that's marred by a lot of complex regulations, legacy technologies, and it's ripe for transformation, but I'm not certain the existing solutions are going to be the ones that make it to the future. So solutions like yours are so important. And the fact that you're using these more like B2C or customer-centric technologies and metrics to immediately give healthcare professionals a way to understand and conceive of the benefits of experience, that's just my way of saying I think that's profound. Walk us through like implementing that. Are you doing that now? What are you using? Are you at liberty to say what's working, what isn't? Give us some tea.
Sure, yeah. I mean, in the Maven context, there's a lot of stuff we're looking at now, especially on the quality end of things. So we haven't implemented anything yet in that particular space. But in my prior career at other companies, including like in financial services, which have some of the similar challenges on a regulatory basis, like with healthcare, and also are not necessarily known for providing the best customer care, shall we say. But in the past, I've implemented a lot of different types of solutions. And I think that definitely is one of the things that is a challenge for CX leaders generally. And I saw this also when I was in the software space, because I headed customer marketing for the company Freshworks for a period of time. And there's just a lot of indecision about how do you implement all these technologies that you go to a conference like this and you see it, and it can be very pie in the sky. And I think there's real hunger for having that kind of operational knowledge. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity for companies to invest in more community building. Because like the best way you understand how do you implement something in your job is to deal with a peer who has implemented it or tried to implement it. And so there's tremendous opportunities in just being able to kind of take a community of clients if you're a software company, and aside from investing in your product, really invest in community building opportunities and invest in local events where you're bringing together your clients so they can talk to each other, or investing in your online community. There's so many different opportunities there, or invest in a customer-facing learning academy. This is really from peer learning that people understand how do you implement all these things intelligently, and you get that real on-the-ground feedback, because it's very hard to get that outside of that, because there's a lot of theory about it and a lot of pie-in-the-sky types of stuff. And I think that turns people off, and they know they have to do something in AI, but they're not sure what they have to do and how they have to do it and how they track success. And it's a big challenge for CX leaders because there's a lot of pressure on them to deliver on something AI basic that will deliver greater efficiency and quality.
It's so true, and there's more AI offerings every second, it feels like.
Absolutely, yeah.
So speaking of that, what are you looking at this show? Are there some new technologies, new entrants, old favorites that you're looking at for going into the next era of CX?
Yeah, I'm excited about a lot of things. And one of the things I most enjoy about shows like this is you can really track the success and where technology is going at conferences like this. Because you see this wide array of different companies, and you talk to people and you see what they're doing and how they're thinking and where they're going next. And you can chart the history of customer experience just by looking at the vendors that were at CCW 6 years ago when you had so much more of like a telephony focus. I remember the first time I came to CCW, which I think was like 2018 or 2019, much more telephony focused, and you didn't have nearly as much stuff on the AI front. And just amazing how you see the evolution of technology. And this is like one of the best ways to kind of get that sense. But I'm really excited about the quality assurance technology again. So I think that's really exciting, like I already said. And I'm also really excited about different technology in the audio video space as well. Because as conversations are kind of morphing from, phone, then you bring an email, then you bring a live chat, then you bring in messaging. And I think there's more and more that's going to take place over video and audio in the future as well, where you'll have more people chatting with customer support agents by sending a voice message, let's say, rather than having to type something out, or be able to have video chats in certain circumstances with agents. And just the AI technology that can exist to analyze that. So you think of all the things AI could analyze. So it can not only analyze your tone, and then, of course, has the conversational text of what you're saying, but the ability for AI to manage or analyze like your facial expressions and be able to use that to understand sentiment. So I think that's a really kind of exciting space that's growing, and you start to see companies tiptoeing into it, but just so much potential to revolutionize customer care.
Don't hate me. I'm going to confess to something, but I did a program once where I took a business to consumer brand and I put video cameras above the cashiers, but behind the cashier. So you couldn't see the cashier's face, but you could see all the faces on all the people coming up to order. And you could get a sentiment analysis on which of the frontline cashiers had the most smiles, as an example.
Yeah. Oh, that's so interesting. Yeah. Because this is also relevant for spaces like healthcare, because in companies like healthcare, aside from like having support, like customer support agents, and again, a good example, you see this in the financial services space too, where you, aside from support, you may have a financial advisor that you speak with. And a world where more and more of those conversations are happening over Zoom or over some sort of video system, that again, there's so much that you can do to kind of analyze those conversations. And when I was in the software space, we did a lot with voice of the customer initiatives, having customer councils on a revolving monthly basis that would take place over Zoom, where we could use different video technology to kind of analyze sentiment and the key feedback areas customers were communicating, and be able to kind of take highlight reels of certain types of comments that could be distributed across the broader organization to product or marketing to actually make that more tangible and meaningful. So yeah, there's a lot that can be done in the video space, either in customer support or in some sort of advisory capacity based on the company you're in, or even as part of your voice of the customer initiatives, when you want to get a more tangible sense and a more visceral sense of what your customers are concerned about.
Love it. I love all of your insights and wisdom. I love that you just got right to such juicy insights. Let's talk about you and the rest of 2024. Where are you going to be speaking? I'm curious about giving the audience context, because you are at a lot of events, you do a lot of speaking, you're knowledgeable about a lot of facets of the industry. Do you have a sense of where people can catch you next to see you speaking? Or
Yeah, so I'm actually going to be at an event next week, Refine CX in New York, and also an event sponsored by Nexus, both in New York. So a little easier for me because I'm in the greater New York City area, so less traveling. And I was just at some events, so I'm going to take a little bit of a break after that, but come back strong in the fall. But yeah, I try to keep myself active on the webinar circuit as well. And yeah, just trying to get some thought leadership out there, but always try to do it with a practical bent, with my experience being a practitioner and also being on the software side of things too.
When we publish this episode, I'll be sure to put links into, do you have a upcoming appearances page that people can access you, or do they just need to follow you on LinkedIn or something?
I can bet that's a great idea, but you basically follow me on LinkedIn and you'll see what's going on.
Let's play this little game. What's on the way in and what's on the way out in 2025?
Oh, that's a good question. What's on the way in? Aside from what I've already mentioned, because I do think that one thing that's on the way in is this focus on video. But I will say I've seen more activity in the telephony space again. And I know telephony is kind of interesting because for a period of time, the messaging was telephony is kind of dead, and it's legacy and it's traditional. And you have this stereotypical image of these poor agents huddled in cubicles in some massive call center or something. But especially being in healthcare, I really appreciated that there's always going to be a space for telephony, and that what's happening now is just with more options for customers, then these different contact channels are just being used in more nuanced ways. And there's a really powerful space for telephony still, and a lot of AI technology that has not been applied as robustly to telephony as it has been to chat and even email. I think many reasons because people thought, telephony is kind of passé. But I think you're starting to see more investment in telephony and more recognition. That has to catch up, like voice bots, because so many different possibilities there. And again, agent assist technology, or you see it here at this conference, like automatic translation. So how do you deal with a vast customer base of people speaking different languages in the telephony context? So I would say there'll be a lot more exciting things bringing AI technology to telephony in 2025, and people perhaps thought that will help to empower more companies to use telephony at scale and in more nuanced ways.
Awesome. All right, what's hot now that's not going to be so hot in 2025?
That's a tricky one. So I would say in terms of, it's not going to be as hot, so I think it's still going to be up there. But I think the chatbot space has become more and more saturated. So I believe that there's always going to be the emphasis on chatbots for scaling purposes. But I think chatbots were kind of positioned as, for a long time when people thought of AI, it was chatbots. And they didn't necessarily think so much outside of that. But I think now as people are looking at so many other ways AI can be used, and some of them you get the similar sort of results from chatbots with less of either the investment or the risk. So it could be using AI technology to empower more self-service in your knowledge base through federated search. Or it could be investment in agent assist technologies that empower agents to be able to deliver human quality experiences at scale, that sort of thing. So I think you'll find more people finding these other areas to invest outside of chatbots rather than looking at chatbots as being like the default, which I think a lot of people do now when they think AI. And they, by default, go to chatbots. So it doesn't mean chatbots won't be important and people will still be using them, but I think people will appreciate more and more what other things you can do with AI, and that will de-emphasize chatbots a bit more.
I feel like we should do a quarterly wrap-up report, me and you, what's hot and what's not. Colin,
I like it.
I appreciate you always for your time, your energy, your wisdom. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the audience before we wrap up this episode of CX in the Wild?
Yeah, no, the only thing I would say is, again, I'm just really, really excited about how you look at all the technology here and how it kind of solves more and more and more the dichotomous problem that customer support leaders have always had between how do I increase efficiency and quality at the same time. And I'm just excited by every time I come to events like this, I see more and more how that's more and more possible. And you don't have to make the trade-offs that you had to make in the past. And I think that's a very encouraging space for any customer support leader to be in, and just providing so many more opportunities to contribute to their customers' experience and also their company, broadly speaking.
What a great and inspirational way to head into the rest of 2024. Colin, thank you so much for being on CX in the Wild.
Thank you, Dennis. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us today. If you'd like to access other podcasts, YouTube videos, or join Dennis on other adventures around the world, be sure to connect with us at www.globalvoiceofcx.com. Until next time, stay curious.